Hey guys, good morning. We're back. We are back with Karen in spirit here. So I'll let her answer. I'll let her ask the questions today. Go ahead, Karen. Well, she's not speaking up, so I'm going to go ahead and do this myself. Anything that I say is not meant to diagnose you or cure you. Check with your doctor before applying any of the stuff that you hear on this station. So today we have a lot of different questions and quizzes, so I think you're going to find it very interesting. There's a ton of questions as well. We're going to go right on the phones to Aaron from San Diego, California. Are you there, Aaron?
Yes, Dr. Berg. How are you?
Great.
Had a question. What is your opinion on acupuncture and colonic therapy regarding helping keto?
Oh, okay.
The keto lifestyle.
Yeah, well, I had both. I've tried acupuncture. I thought it was very, very beneficial. It goes back 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years, so it stood the test of time. I highly recommend it. I did acupressure, which is completely different, but acupuncture is a very valid form of therapy. If you can find someone really good that can do it, it's going to be awesome. So it's very targeted to specific conditions, and it's been proven to work. So I do recommend it. Now, as far as keto, if you have a specific problem, maybe that can help you enhance it, because, any body problems, even inflammation that can be, that's persisting when you're doing keto, can slow you down a little bit. So it's really good to handle any of that with various other modalities to maximize your results. As far as colon hydrotherapy, I've done that many different times. I like it. There's a Bernard Jensen, when he was still alive, I went to visit him, and that was, at that time, he was recommending what's called a colema, which is a combination between an enema and a colonic together. So it's a kit that you would take home, and you would basically do this by yourself for 7 days, twice a day, and it was really intense. That's like the ultimate Roto-Rooter on steroids. I think it's a good cleanse. I think if I had to do it over again, I wouldn't add the apple juice, and I would have done it differently. But it's a good program. And the thing about colon therapy, though, if you're just doing colon hydrotherapy, is that you better put the friendly bacteria back in, because you're going to flush that out. So if you don't do that, you can end up with imbalances. So, but it's good, especially if you had a history of constipation, and if you have a history of anything that involves obstruction of the bowels. If you're not into that, that's totally fine. If you start consuming more cruciferous foods, you start eating healthy, your body will naturally detoxify the cells and the liver and the colon as well, especially when you do intermittent fasting. Thanks for your call, Aaron. Let's go to Denise from, let's see. Denise, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Hi, how are you?
How are you?
Great.
Fine, how are you?
Good.
Okay, my question is, I went in for my routine thyroid test, and my T3 is low, my TSH is low, but this test that she ran, the ANA antibody test, was high, and so she's like, oh, you have to go to a rheumatologist, you could have this, that, the other thing, and I asked her, if you just lower the thyroid medication, I read that can have an effect on the ANA test, and she said, oh no, you definitely have another condition. And I said, well, I don't exhibit anything, I don't have arthritis and all that, so I was wondering what your opinion of the ANA and how reliable it is.
Yeah, now that's an antibody test to determine if there's
Right.
Antibodies against your own tissue. It's not 100%, like I would say it's maybe 80%, but there's a lot of times you'll see a lot of false positives. So it shows positive when it's really not. And so, you want to go by other factors too. So I would look at the whole thing, and I will say that 90% of hypothyroidism is Hashimoto's. It is an autoimmune condition. In that case, maybe you want to go in a different direction. And I'm not telling you to do this, but I'm just saying maybe you do things like selenium, zinc, fasting, periodic prolonged fasting to help your immune system, because if there is truly a positive ANA test, then you want to actually support it with a lot of vitamin D in intermittent fasting, in selenium, and then reattest it and see how you do. I mean, when you do keto intermittent fasting, sometimes your thyroid hormones will go down, but normally you shouldn't have an altered thyroid stimulating hormone. That's the hormone between the pituitary and the thyroid. So when that is off, then there could be an issue. But I mean, here's the thing about the thyroid. So many people have been diagnosed with thyroid, and so they're put on medication, but they don't really see the changes. And they're like, what causes it? Well, we don't know. You just have it low, so let's keep monitoring, and they don't really ever come out of it. So I always like to not be convinced that that's like the biggest problem you have, or the only problem, or there might be some secondary issues, the test might be altered, so it all has to align up and make sense. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thanks, Denise. And Steve, as the questions come in, let me know, okay?
Okay, well, they actually are. Terry here has been very busy, and I'm just taking all the credit for reading them. So first on YouTube, Masood, is microsilver better than nanosilver?
Yeah. You know, honestly, that's my opinion, but I have not seen any studies, so I think that, I don't know. I think the nanosilver seems to work fine, but I don't have enough data to tell you yes or no. You're going to have to do the research on that, but good question.
It certainly is. Okay, now let's go through who's watching and listening around the world. Shout out to our viewers in Iraq, London, Toronto, Sweden, Morocco, Ireland, the Philippines, and all across, of course, the United States, and there's more pouring in. So clearly a worldwide phenomenon to get healthy and be your best.
Geez, now you're making me nervous. I'm getting nervous up here.
You should.
People are watching.
They certainly are.
Steve, you know, speaking about people all over the world watching, I used to have a lot of people from fly in from around the world, come in the clinic from Saudi Arabia, from Europe, from all different countries. They would fly in, India, from patients that had relatives. And there's some interesting cases. People always want to know, like, what kind of results do you get? Well, we got really great results, but it's never 100% for various reasons. There was a couple cases that I remember, several cases that really stand out, like no matter what you did, they just, nothing budged. I want to just talk about that because just bizarre cases. Like one lady came in and her problem was constipation. Her whole life. She would go every 3 weeks. Now, what was really weird, Steve, is that she would eat 3 times a day with snacks, and her stomach wasn't even enlarged. So that is a mystery that is beyond mysteries. I had no idea of what was going on with her, where it was going, this food, but she didn't seem to, unless she was lying to me, but I don't think she would be lying to come in like that. So that was one case. Another case came in, this lady who was trying to lose weight, but unfortunately at the time, that was when I was recommending apples. And unfortunately, I really at the time didn't know that that was the barrier. So if you're new to this channel and you're trying to lose weight with fruit, that could be the reason why you're not going to lose weight. Another lady came in and she had an issue that was, I think, beyond my scope, severely beyond my scope. She basically, her electrical system in her body was such that she could literally stop a watch, stop a computer once her body gets close to it. Certain people have that ability. I've never even heard about that, but that was her problem. She wanted to know what I could do. I was like, I don't know what I can do about that. So
truly bizarre.
Stopping a watch. So she went through a lot of watches. So did her husband. So that was a problem. Any form of electronics. So there's always cases. One lady came in with a 45-pound spleen. Now don't ask me how she measured it, but it was an enlarged spleen that was overtaking the rest of her organs. And I do know now that if you're low in zinc, the spleen will enlarge. So she could have been very low, but I think that wasn't the only issue. Anyway, if you have some questions, go ahead and ask away, but I have some quizzes that I want to ask everyone really soon here. All right, so I'm going to go to Rochelle in Chicago, Illinois. Are you there?
I am. Hi, Dr. Berg.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well. Hope you are too.
Great.
So, question for you. I know you don't recommend consuming less than 75 grams of fat per day.
Yeah.
But given that we all theoretically have plenty of fat on our bodies already, why is that? Is it that we need dietary fat for fat-soluble vitamins?
It's a really, really, really good question, Rochelle. So let's just talk about that. Yes, we need fat for various reasons. One is we need something called essential fatty acids. Essential being your body can't make it, so it must be received from the diet. And what I'm talking about with that, we're talking about omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA. Very important for cell membranes, very important for preventing inflammation, very important for your vision, preventing macular degeneration. So it's really, really essential, all the essential fatty acids. There's more than just those omega-3 fatty acids. The other thing is we need all the fat-soluble vitamins, not just vitamin A, D, E, and K, but vitamin K2. So that's very, very important. Now, if you have extra fat on your body, you can get by with less fat, especially if your body breaks down your own fat into ketones. But the other thing too is I do know if you go lower than 75 grams and you start going really low fat, that means that you're going to go very lean protein. And being in practice for like 30 years, I noticed that when you do lean protein, even if it's keto, it's really hard on the liver because normally when you consume protein from nature, it never comes lean other than if you're eating rabbits or maybe some squirrels or something. But normally there's a certain amount of fat there, so there's definitely that factor in helping you digest. When you do lean protein, it seems to be harder on the liver, and it spikes insulin more as well. So anyway, that's just my thought on that, and there's some other reasons probably will come to me in about an hour from now. But thanks for your question. It's a very good
Doc,
question.
I guess we can hit some questions here. Once again, Terry has been working diligently to follow our social media. And now let's go over to Facebook. Lisa, what's the best way to lose that final 15 pounds, the final 15 as it's known?
Well, I can tell you how to lose the last 10 pounds, but the 15 is kind of, that's stretching it, but I'll see what I can do. All right, so number one, when you do keto, it's pretty easy at first. You lose all this weight, and then you get close to your goal, and then it stops. That is, you have a certain set point that everyone has that just can't seem to get below a certain level. And I'm talking about like it could be 180 pounds, 170 pounds, whatever. That has primarily to do with your insulin resistance, okay? How long you've abused your sugars and carbs to develop insulin resistance, which has a direct effect on your metabolism and your weight. So what you want to do when you get close to your weight and you start to stall is you want to shift your goal and target insulin resistance. Now, what does that mean? It means that you want to be very, very strict in your amount of things that will elevate insulin. So you would want to cut down your carbs even more than 20 grams, maybe 10, maybe 5, maybe to 0. That would help you. You want to do longer fasting. If you're already doing 2 meals a day, go to 1 meal. If you're doing 1 meal a day, go to 1 every other meal. Apple cider vinegar helps insulin resistance. Vitamin D really helps insulin resistance. Potassium will improve that situation with insulin resistance. Magnesium will improve it. Vitamin C will improve it. Zinc will definitely improve it. So all these nutrients have a huge effect. The other thing to look at is what to avoid, like stress is the big factor. And sleep is a big factor, not getting enough sleep. So those are all really important factors that will slow you down. And if you plug those in, you will get to your ideal situation. And there's more to talk about. I've done videos on that, but that should at least give you something to do. Steve, I think it's time for the first quiz.
Can't wait.
Okay, so Steve, you've heard of atherosclerosis, right?
I have.
Okay, so that's a pretty major problem with coronary heart disease, wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely.
Okay, so the first quiz is this. At what age does this usually start? So see what people say on social media. We're going to answer some questions and come back to it.
Absolutely.
Okay? All right, so now we're going to go to Sherry from Florida. Are you there, Sherry?
Hi, Dr. Berg.
Hi.
My question is,
Hi.
having nearly reached my weight loss goal,
Yeah.
how do I continue keto IF fasting without losing more weight?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had to handle that as well. I was like 211 pounds, and I dropped all the way down to 180, and then I started losing more. I don't want to go down past 180. So what I had to do is I had to use more of my dietary fats as my ketone source, which means that I had to add more fat to the meals, and maybe even a little bit more MCT oil between the meals, or not between the meals, maybe in the morning as your bulletproof coffee. So that right there, that will help you greatly. Also, instead of having extremely low carbs, maybe you increase it to about, 40, 50 grams per day. So keep your carbs a little bit higher, okay? The other thing you can do, to keep your carbs a little bit higher without trying to spike the blood sugars is you can do berries. And what I like to do is I like to take the Bulgarian type yogurts, which I'm going to release a video on. The ones that are whole milk, grass-fed, organic, the real good stuff. And then I take some pecans, I put it in there, and some berries. So there's a little bit of carb in the yogurt. If you do a cup, it's like 10 grams. It's not that much. And then you add the berries in there, and then the pecans, and then I just eat that as an additional thing to my meal. So I'm adding more calories and more carbs to that meal, and it seems to be beneficial for my gut and other things as well. So those are just some things that you can do, Sherry. Thanks for your call. Steve, what do we have as an answer to the question, roughly what age do people start to develop atherosclerosis?
All right, well, 50% of our YouTube viewers say it's in the 20s, 20% say 30s, 10% say teens, and 20% when you are born. Oh, come on, well, maybe that's cute. And then Facebook, 45% in their 20s, 25% in their 30s, and so on. So I think that gives us a trend.
Okay, so I have a question for you. What do you think, Steve? What's your answer on that?
I would think it would be in the 30s.
You would think, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The answer is 7 years old
Oh my God.
on average.
No wonder I'm a wreck.
Now they've done studies, and I'm going to do a video on this. They've done studies where they did autopsies on children, teenagers that were in traumatic accidents, and they found their arteries were like, they had some problems, the fatty streaks. There's even some studies where even infants, so whoever said that is correct, they found some fatty streaks in the coronary artery as well as the aorta.
So obviously that's congenital, or is it what's happening in the
I
womb?
think
in
what
vitro?
they're eating. I really think what they're eating.
Wow.
That's the big thing. Now, of course, a lot of these studies say it's the fat that they're eating. No, because they did in the study, they measured their macros too. They looked at their macros, and it was like 30 or 40% carbs. So at the time they did these studies, this is back in the 70s, they didn't realize the effect of carbs on the fatty streaks in your arteries. So we have the fatty streaks in our aorta as well as in our coronary artery, which feeds the heart muscle tissue. But it's happening earlier and earlier. Now what's interesting, Steve, is that I said fatty streaks, but I didn't say plaquing. The plaquing starts in your 20s.
And that's
early
obviously
20s.
diet related, I
It's
guess.
totally diet related.
Yeah.
It's the carbs. An average, the American Heart Association put out a recommendation that you're not supposed to have any more than 6 additional teaspoons of sugar per day. Why even recommend 6, right? because the average child is consuming 19 teaspoons of sugar a day. That's added sugar to the other grains and stuff. So it's so obvious to me that it's the carbs that are doing this, because when you do the carbs, you cause the small, dense LDL particles, the cholesterol, to invade into the tissue. And you create a lot of inflammation. You create a lot of, there's a whole series of things that damage the inside of the arteries. It makes the arteries thicker. So
much interplay with all this, huh?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, brings me up to my next question. When you're ready, let me know.
Yeah, the point is that if your child is starting to get overweight, you know there's some changes in the arteries. And this just goes to point out the very important fact that these children, these young adults, don't have symptoms. So it's kind of a silent thing that starts and it brews just like diabetes, and then one day you end up with a heart attack and you're wondering why. This stuff happens when you're in your 20s.
Well,
So
a fascinating guy, Jim Fixx, I think, the runner. He, just could run 20 miles, just jump out of the car and run it. And he died while playing tennis. He had a beautiful heart muscle, but his arteries were clogged. Who knew with all that? So obviously exercise did not cure it in and of itself. And he dropped dead, and he had coronary blockage, which just seems insane for a guy like that. But you is what you eat, aren't you?
yes, you is. And after the next question, I'm gonna say something that I probably shouldn't say because they might ban this video. But I think I need to say it's important, and it's related to a thing that I want to talk about more, but I can't. But I'm going to talk about it anyway.
You rebel.
About arrhythmias and the electrical system of the heart. I've done some videos on that, but I didn't really emphasize like the big elephant in the room. But I'm going to talk about that after the next question, because we're not doing a break, right?
No break for you, Doc. Sorry. Well, by the way, so Kanika wants to know if keto can affect her ovulation.
There's two things on that. I've noticed that when people do keto, especially when they do intermittent fasting, sometimes they become very fertile and they have a child. Sometimes they lose their period. I really think that has to relate with what type of keto you're doing. Are you doing healthy keto? Are you doing dirty keto? And I'm talking about the nutrients in those calories, because keto is really just ketones, but it doesn't really talk about the other benefits of the healthy keto, nutrition, satisfying your body, especially the endocrine system. I really believe if you do keto correctly, you can enhance the endocrine system, because I've seen it more and more, especially with pregnancy. Especially with pregnancy. If you take even Dr. Fong in Toronto, I think he is, with his office, I talked to some of his staff, and they have amazing results. They do keto and especially intermittent fasting, and one of the big things they see is that women are just getting pregnant left and right, so they're becoming more fertile. So,
exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's. You want to go to another question? Let's do it.
Yeah. Give me another question, then I'm going to talk about that thing that I probably shouldn't be talking about.
Okay, good. Okay, so on YouTube, Oz. What do you recommend for iron saturation?
The best thing for iron saturation is red meat. Liver would do it. That's the best source of available iron. Now realize too, if you're a male and you're getting older, iron is very, very, very toxic, because our bodies don't have a really good method of getting rid of it. Body has a great way of getting rid of potassium and other minerals, but not iron. So it holds on iron. That becomes very toxic. It can create potentially a problem with your liver, cirrhosis, and all sorts of inflammatory conditions and fatigue.
How do you know if you have...
Watch my video on that. I talk about the dangers of high levels of iron. Watch the video on that. So now I want to reveal to you, Steve, this thing I probably shouldn't talk about because they're shutting videos down. But I want to mention one of the biggest factors for arrhythmias, the electrical system of the heart, is the electromagnetic fields, the EMF. Now, of course, I'm not going to mention G5. Okay, I'm not going to mention that. I just did, but I'm not going to talk about that. But I want to talk about EMFs. Like some people say, oh, it's fine, EMF. Like, first of all, what is EMF? Well, you have a combination of three things. You have the kind of the radio frequencies that your cell phone gives off, like when you're like this. It's like the microwaves that are, it's a certain frequency that's going in your body, in the cell towers. And then you also have electrical fields. So in your bedroom, Steve, do you have like a little lamp that's sitting next to your bed?
I do.
Okay, so you have the light on, and then you have electrical current going through there. You're going to have electrical fields that are going to be in that area. Okay? 6 to 8 feet from that power cord or the cord to the light, because it gives off a field. So that affects our bodies, especially our hearts and our brains. But you also, when you turn it off, problem solved, right?
Maybe not. The wall socket.
No, because you still have the pressure, the voltage in that line. It's just not flowing. So that gives off a magnetic field.
Interesting.
And the magnetic fields just wear you out, especially the heart, if you're exposed to them. So if you're sitting in front of your computer, you should get one of those EMF testers, and I'll do a video on the best one to get because it's really easy once you understand it. You can start measuring how close you could sit in front of your computer. And I'm doing that. I'm finding some fascinating data with not even my computer at all. It's the power cable and the surge protector that is literally, I got to be 8 feet away from my computer to get away from it. But if you're sitting in front of your computer with the power cable underneath by your feet or your backup battery, you're basically being exposed to electrical fields and magnetic fields all day long, which eventually start to create problems with your electrical part of the heart, arrhythmias. I mean, I didn't think there was a lot of scientific data on this. There is hardcore research on this with humans, so I will be doing a video on that. But it's a simple fix, though. You can get
put all the cords over by Lori, right, and let her block it. Would that work?
Maybe not, Steve. But there are some types of power cables that you can get that are kind of shielded. But it's quite intense once you find out how much you're getting, and you handle that. Your energy will go up, and your heart will be happier.
You know, a fascinating test for that, they had some people protesting power lines going into their neighborhood, and they ran out there with fluorescent bulbs and just held them underneath, and they fluoresce and grow
Really?
wildly from 30 or 40 feet away from the source of power. Of course, that's 750,000 volts. But obviously, it doesn't just sit up there in the lines.
We got this thing on our skull all day, right? So there are little things that you can put on your phone, but definitely the most important thing is like where you're sleeping all night, because that's going to prevent you getting to the delta wave sleep. And it's not even when you turn it off. Literally, it's the wires that are on the wall on your headboard. So I'm going to do a video on that. I think you're going to find it very beneficial. And then your computer thing is another situation, and then your car. So I don't want to overwhelm people, but stay tuned for that video. Let's go to Patti. You're from Virginia, right down the street, Patti. Hi, how are you?
Yes. And I just finished your certification course, and
Awesome.
I'm so stoked about it.
Oh, that's great.
Yep. Yeah. Well, my question is, a couple years ago, I found out I had Hep C, hepatitis C.
Yeah.
I had no symptoms, right?
Yeah.
So they treated me. In the course of being treated, of course, I had a sonogram on my liver, and there was some scarring on my liver.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm down to my last 10 pounds, and they're very stubborn. Is there something I can do to heal that scarring?
That's a good question. Potentially, yes. There are some enzymes that tend to, from silkworms, that allow the excess scar tissue, the abnormal scar tissue in your body to be removed. And it's called serapeptase. So if you take that in large amounts, I think maybe over like 100,000 IUs, then what will happen is that potentially could reduce that fibrous tissue. Now, the other thing that you can do as well is you can do some hardcore autophagy. And autophagy just occurs when you do longer fasts. And so if you did a periodic 48-hour fast, what happens, your body will start to eat up this damaged protein in the body, and you may actually improve the liver from that angle. So those are the two things I would recommend. The other thing too is that Hep C comes from a virus. And so you would want to make sure that your immune system is really strong, and the intermittent fasting, the low carb is going to be beneficial for that. Maybe even some high quality oregano oil every day, just to make sure you're clearing out that stuff, because the last thing we want is your immune system to be constantly kind of creating inflammation, because that's where the scar tissue comes from. But you probably already dealt with that. Thanks, Patti.
Okay, the troops are restless. I think we better get back to Facebook in this case.
Yeah.
Deanna, my pal on Facebook, wants to know the best way to measure heart rate for cardio so that she can effectively burn fat.
Yeah, it's easy. You can get one of those pulse meters, and it'll tell you what your pulse rate is. You stick it on your finger, bam, measures it. I have quite a few. It's like around the house. You check your pulse rate, and it's a quick method, just the pulse rate meter.
So what should be an optimum pulse rate perhaps for a woman who wants to burn fat and not go into aerobics or whatever?
Well, a normal pulse rate is 72, right? That's where it starts from. But when you do keto and you're in shape, that pulse rate should be lower. It should be like 60, maybe even 54, 5 for a real healthy person. But if you're not exercising and it's low, that's a problem, right? So a lot of things can affect the pulse rate. Potassium deficiencies will cause the pulse rate to go up. B1 deficiencies will cause the pulse rate to go up. So there's quite a few things there. So the key with the pulse rate is your ability to recover after exercise. So if you were to work out a minute hardcore, you would want your pulse rate to come down quick. Now that would happen if you're 18 years old, for sure, because you have a strong recovery. But as you get older, the pulse rate doesn't come down because your recovery sucks. So you want to make sure you don't overtrain. You want to keep doing short bursts of high intense and let it rest. Have your pulse rate come all the way down. The key with that problem, Steve, is your ability to completely stop after exercise and wait until the pulse rate comes down to a good range before you exercise again.
I'm sorry to be so picky, but what's a good range? So if you're at 140 from some burst or 150, where should it go to?
Ideally, bring it down to maybe, I don't know, back to where you started, or maybe a little bit higher.
Yeah.
But don't. The thing is, like, you're trying to strengthen your parasympathetic nervous system, so you need to let it work. And that parasympathetic is an active push-down wave that pushes your pulse rate down to normal. So the worst thing to do is just keep it elevated all the time. So we want to do the up and down, the wave type exercise. Steve, it's time for a question.
All righty.
What is the top symptom if you are deficient in omega-3 fatty acids?
The top symptom if you're deficient on omega-3 fatty acids. All right, I know they're cramming in their answers.
Okay, good. So I'm going to go to a call. You can generate some more questions here.
Absolutely.
Tim has been waiting patiently from Germany. Are you there?
Yes, Dr. Berg.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you too.
Hi. I have a question. Basically, I have not a weight issue, so I'm not trying to lose weight. You probably answered part of it in an earlier question, but either way, is there any other approach? I have basically an inflammation issue since many years, so is there a different approach for me, or is it just the same?
You know, there's you brought up a good question. Inflammation. Out of all the drugs that there are sold, the majority of money is allocated for inflammatory conditions. So you have autoimmune, you got the rheumatoid arthritis, you got irritable bowel. Inflammatory conditions are widespread. In fact, cancer goes into and migrates into inflamed areas and old injuries, called oncotaxis. But the point is that there are some huge benefits of doing both the reduction of carbs, keto, and intermittent fasting for inflammation. That's like essential. Okay, and then if you want to add something on top of that, you just beef up, no pun intended, your vitamin D. And I would, one of the go-to magical things that I recommend for people with pain and inflammation, that's like a no-brainer, works all the time, is just take 40,000 IUs of vitamin D for a couple days. Your pain, gone, okay? And inflammation goes down, because vitamin D is not even a vitamin, it's an anti-inflammatory hormone that helps with many different things, including inflammation. So vitamin D is key. So those are the key things. Lower your vitamin D, intermittent fasting, vitamin D. That's what I would do if I were you, Tim. But thanks for your question. What do we got for answers on that question? What's the top symptom of omega-3 fatty acids, Steve?
Okay, so Facebook, about 45% say, I'm in the wrong place. 25 say brain fog, 25 say joint pain, 10% say depression, can't we relate to that? 10% fatigue, 10% cracked skin, organ malfunction, anger management, that's interesting. And then over on YouTube, 50% of, no, I'm in the wrong place. 20 say joint pain, 50 scaly skin and dry skin, goodness.
Okay, so all of you are correct on the symptoms, for sure. Everyone's correct. But the top symptom is, are you ready for this, Steve?
Standing by.
Dry and rough skin. And it could be scaly too.
I'll be darned.
Dry, and I mean, you probably see people with their skin is just dried and it's rough and it's scaly. That is a classic omega-3 fatty acid deficiency. Now, the next one is dry eyes. Classic omega-3 fatty acid deficiency. You also have a lot of the other ones that people said, joint pain and inflammation, because omega-3 is very important in your heart. It's good for the eye and the brain. It affects your mood, your focus, your energy, and your ability to remember. So we got a lot of things. So I guess this brings up the next question. Well, I'm not going to ask this because I think everyone knows it. Where do you get omega-3 fatty acids? Fish. Fatty fish, not the cod fish, unless you're doing the cod liver oil. And cod liver oil is one of the best sources of omega-3 fatty acids, hands down, because it not only has the DHA and the EPA, but it also has the vitamin D and vitamin A. But that being said, I do recommend fatty salmon on a regular basis. So definitely 2 or 3 times a week, Steve.
Yeah, well, so many of us, I think, have been brainwashed, especially in my generation, fat, whether it's, omega-3 or whatever has been thought to be horrible and bad. And, that you're going to get acne from it or perhaps skin problems. And when really the opposite is true in many cases, as long as it's the right combination of fats and so on. Is that right?
If you have a fatty liver and you take omega-3 fatty acids, it'll actually improve that problem. It'll actually decrease the fat in your liver.
So counterintuitive.
Yeah, so I'm telling you, fish, I'm talking about grass-fed. I have this place where I get my grass-fed fish, and it's not grass-fed, okay? It's wild-caught. Okay, Steve, just want to see if you were awake over there. You didn't catch that. So if you feed your fish grass, they're going to be really healthy, but you want to do wild-caught fish. And salmon, I have a way of cooking it. I like to get it in almost like a real thick, small little square. And then what I do is I just use salt and pepper, butter, and I fry it so it's crispy on one side, next side. And I put sea salt and pepper on each side, just so it's nice and crispy, and it's slightly raw on the inside. I'm telling you, Steve, that's really some. When you go to a restaurant and order fish, I just cannot stand when it tastes fishy, especially salmon. It's old. So I like to make my own salmon, unless there's a place you can go get it fresh. But there's nothing better than some fresh salmon. All right, Steve, do you have some questions for me?
Oops, wrong mic button. Okay, yes, I certainly do. Sabrina wants to know the best supplements for a 14-year-old girl who's, right there.
Well, I would just imagine probably puberty. So most 14-year-olds probably need to do keto and not snack too much. But I think one of the most important supplements for those kids would be would be vitamin C, for example, a good, high quality, not synthetic, but a food-based vitamin C. And also the trace minerals for the minerals. That really helps them because they usually don't consume enough vegetables. And then the other thing is vitamin D, D3. Those are the three that I would definitely. Now, if your child is smaller, let's say they're an infant or they're a young kid, oh my gosh, make sure that you also add the trace minerals, because that can be so important in the development of your tissues. If you're breastfeeding and the mother is deficient, or even pregnant and the mother's deficient in vitamin D, the child is very susceptible to having all sorts of skeletal malformations like scoliosis and flat feet and all these things. So you need the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin D, and you also need the trace minerals to actually prevent that. Very important. Okay, Steve, here's the next question.
Okay.
There's confusion on this. Is lemon juice acid or alkaline?
I'm dying to answer it, but I'll wait.
Wait on that, Steve.
All
While
right.
I go to a question. Fraser from South Carolina has been waiting patiently. Are you there, Fraser?
Yes, I am.
Hi.
Hi. My question is, I'm 56 and have been trying to lose 10, 15 pounds probably all my life. And I read your book, and I found out that I was a thyroid type body type. So I went to my physician, and she said that my thyroid was not high, but I was able to, after doing your diet, to come off my cholesterol medicine. But then she told me I was pre-diabetic. And I was wondering if your diet will help with diabetes as well as thyroid.
Wow, that's a really good question. Now, of course, this is my disclaimer. Always check with your doctor before adding anything new, especially recommendations from me, because I don't make any claims of curing especially diseases. But I do want to say something about what you just asked. The benefits of keto in general, especially the healthy version, if you do it with healthy ingredients and intermittent fasting, as it relates to type 2 diabetes, is over the top phenomenal. I mean, think about it. What is diabetes? Diabetes is a problem of high sugar. Okay, then what is keto? It's the opposite. It's going to reduce your carbs. Why is it damaging to have diabetes? Because the high sugar corrodes your eyes, your arteries, your nerves, your kidney, the liver. And so there's also damaging effects from high levels of insulin that comes way before the high sugar. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of videos on insulin resistance that I think you should watch and learn about. But keto works for weight loss and other things because it helps reduce insulin to your normal levels. So you're getting a double benefit. You're getting the benefit of helping lower insulin and those effects, and you're lessening the toxic effect of glucose. So absolutely, this is like very beneficial for your blood sugars, and there's a lot of data on keto and diabetes in general. You can look up studies that are done on this, but that's my answer. But thanks for your call. Okay, so now let's see here. Steve, what do we have as an answer?
All right, well, as I suspected, 90% on both Facebook and YouTube think it's acidic, and then 10% stray away from the norm and say alkaline. What say you?
Okay, so there's confusion on this because people will say, well, eat lemons because it's very alkalizing. Lemon juice has citric acid, okay? So it is an acid, but when it gets into your body and it metabolizes, it breaks down, it turns into an alkaline substance.
Now I feel dumb.
So it alkalizes the urine, not your blood though, your urine. So what is the benefit of lemon juice? Can it help you with weight loss? No, it's not going to help you lose a pound. It's going to help you provide vitamin C for sure, because it's one lemon is like half the RDAs of vitamin C. So there's a huge benefits for vitamin C. But also the benefits of handling the acidic urine, especially if you're susceptible to kidney stones, okay? and because the oxalates, it binds with the oxalates, which is awesome, and also gout. So it can reduce the risk of gout, because you really can't experience the gout symptoms if your urine pH is a little bit higher. It's only when it becomes more acidic, lower pH, that you start having problems. So that's why lemon can help you. So that's really, it's kind of a trick question, but it's an acid that turns into an alkaline substance in your body.
Interesting.
All right. You have some questions for me?
Yeah, I sure do. On Facebook, we have Christine. Should I cycle in and out of keto if I am pre-menopause? Boy, that sounds like a recipe for misery.
Yeah, the whole cycling of keto, I do not like that. In fact, you may find that all of a sudden keto doesn't work as effectively because you're cycling. You're going on carbs, off carbs, on carbs. Honestly, it doesn't even make sense to me logically to cycle through. Now, the analogy that people say is, well, you know, it creates that hermetic effect. It's kind of like exercise. You put your body in stress, and not true with the metabolism. You don't want to stress your metabolism out. It's already been stressed out and burnt out. You're creating more insulin resistance. So if you don't believe me, go ahead and try it and see how it works for you. But the point is that I don't like the cycling, the carb cycling thing. Not a good idea.
Okay, how about one more real quick one? Cherie on Facebook wants to know if she can reverse genetically caused high cholesterol.
Okay, so before I answer that, I want to go back to the question I just said. I'm not saying you can never have carbs again, Steve. What I'm saying is that get your body into a really good place, you reach your goals, you get really healthy, then you can afford to go off the program here and there.
Yeah, well, I can't because I'm not disciplined enough, so I'd rather just stick with it.
Right.
I suffer when I go off for the donut rage.
I think you learned your lesson.
Yeah, I have through the rod. I require the rod, unfortunately.
Yeah, if like certain people, just once they go off, forget it. Okay, Steve, when you have a genetic problem with cholesterol, I do not have any data that you can actually reverse that. I don't know. I don't even think so. But realize that the genes don't have the final say. It's the epigenes or epigenetic factors. So your lifestyle affects the expression of genes more than the genes themselves. If you have high cholesterol, there are a lot of things you can do that align with keto and intermittent fasting. I may have done a video on this, Steve, but maybe I haven't. Maybe I need to do one. But maybe you want to just not add a lot of extra cholesterol at this point. But anyway, I think it's going to help you, because what is the alternative? To do the carbs? Now you're really going to convert a massive amount of very unfriendly cholesterol that you don't want.
Makes sense. Stick with the game.
Yeah, stick with it. All right, Steve, the next question of the day, and there's carnivores watching, and people want to know, is there a non-plant or non-vegetable source of vitamin C?
I'm flummoxed.
What's that?
I said I'm flummoxed, so we'll see what the audience
Okay.
says.
All right, good. So we'll let people answer that one, because we know a lot of the vitamin C comes from plants. Is there another source? Let's go to, let me just see if I could read this here. Arlo from Vancouver, British Columbia, one of the most beautiful places on earth. Are you there, Arlo?
I am.
Hey, what's your question?
Yeah, it's great to be able to speak with you here today. Thank you for taking my call.
Absolutely.
So my doctor believes I have sarcoidosis, maybe RA too, based on some x-rays. And I was taking between 20 and 40,000 IUs of vitamin D a day before I knew about the sarcoidosis. Mm-hmm. I saw your video on vitamin D toxicity where you mentioned that just a little bit. And I'm wondering, like, well, now I'm not taking any vitamin D because I was actually having, like, daily bladder stones. So I stopped taking all vitamin D. That's done. Lots of palpitations, too, and that's stopped also. So I'm wondering, like, okay, well, now I'm not taking any D. Is there a way to get some D, or to just be less, maybe?
Okay, so this is a very good question. First of all, I have to mention that Vancouver is just, I've been there, it's like simply gorgeous place. Okay, that out of the way. When you have this condition called sarcoidosis, that's one factor that could be a problem with taking a lot of vitamin D. So the best way to get your vitamin D to not have a problem is through sun. That's going to be your source. Depending on the color of your skin, the darker the skin, the more you have to get on the sun. So if you're darker, you may have to be out in the sun for an hour and a half to get the amount of vitamin D. If you're lighter, then you need less. But the point is that I would get, when you get it from sun, there's a lot of regulatory mechanisms that will prevent the overload of that. But on the flip side, I think it would be very, very important for you to consume vitamin K2. Just K2 by itself, because that will actually help to offset the stone formations and things like that. K2 is amazing. Also, the other thing is to take a good essential fatty acid. And I think you could even go, you could do a flax oil, which can turn into the omega-3 fatty acids, or you can do a fish oil for that. But there is a little bit of vitamin D in there, but I wouldn't worry about it if you're just taking a small amount of cod liver oil, because it's going to be insignificant. But K2 is the key missing element with that condition. So I would do that, and that may help you. But thanks for your call. Steve, what do we got? What do we got for the a good non-source of good non-plant source of vitamin C?
Well, I just wouldn't have figured any of this, but YouTube suggests about 80% of them that organ meats will give you vitamin C, and 20% say fish. Over to our Facebook friends, 75% say fish, 20 liver, and then 5 krill.
Okay, good. Well, guess what? Everyone is correct. A really good source of vitamin C would be whale skin. Yeah, I mean, when I do whale skin,
Get that at 7-Eleven, or where do you pick that up?
I think you need to go to either Walmart or McDonald's to get that. But if you get a high quality whale skin and you fry it just right, you can get some vitamin C. But the answer is yes. It comes from many different sources. You can do. There's some conflicting data on meat itself. There's some say that yes, some say no. So I potentially that, but it's really in the organ meats. The organ meats, and especially brain and nervous system. Okay, so if you could just cook some more brain when you do that, slice it up.
I'd rather have gout, thank you.
They have brain sandwiches now. You can, and especially the spinal column. If you attach that and you fry that, you get a really good source of vitamin C.
Gag me with a spoon.
The other thing you can do is the adrenal glands, the inside of the adrenal glands, Steve. So if you're hunting and you get a caribou or some deer, you can grab the adrenal glands, fry them up, and you'll get a good amount of vitamin C. But you need to consume the inside, the medulla part.
I'm just not that willing to be healthy.
Well, I'll tell you what. Work up to it, Steve, okay? All right. So we're going to go to Chris from Illinois. Hey, Chris, are you there?
I'm there.
Hey, how you doing?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay. Okay. This is my second time I've called in. I started the intermittent fasting and the keto diet December 26, 2019. And it seemed to be working. I lost a lot of weight, which I wasn't concerned with. But I was eating every other day, and I was still having high blood sugar. And then I called in, you said go to 1 meal a day. I went to 1 meal a day. The problem is the blood sugar still stays high, and I've gotten back on metformin because even though the blood sugar will come down after I fast, it immediately goes up and stays up for at least 2 days before it comes back down. And I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, but I'm sure open for any kind of answers.
Yeah, this is very unusual, but it's definitely an important question. We really need to, in order to figure this out, we need more data. because we're operating off of incomplete data. We need to know what your fasting insulin is. That would give us a lot of good data. And I would do HOMA IR. Have you heard of HOMA IR test?
No, I'm getting a paper and pencil. HOMA-IR?
Yes, HOMA-IR. That test will measure insulin resistance. Okay, so that'll be a very important test to find some doctor that can do it. That's going to give you what's going on. I would also get an ultrasound of your liver just to see if there's any type of fat in the liver, cirrhosis that could be interfering with this, because if you're not consuming carbs, then your body's making excessive amount of carbs, and that's called gluconeogenesis, and that's the liver's doing that. So we want to find out what the liver's doing. We also want to find out what the pancreas is doing. So any evaluation that your doctor can do to evaluate the function of the beta cell on the pancreas would be very beneficial. That's really what we're missing here. We need more data to find out what's going on. Why is your body making all this extra sugar? Is there such a resistance in the cell that it's not letting it get through, so then the sugar has no choice to go up, because obviously insulin is not doing its job. So you're doing your metformin, which honestly, out of all the medications, that's probably the least damaging, so that's the good news. But I would also make sure you're taking vitamin B1 and B12, because if you take metformin without those B1 and B12, then what happens is you could potentially have another side effect, which is lactic acidosis. So I think you're going to be okay doing this, but that's what I would recommend, Chris. But thanks for your question.
Okay, Doc, as we wrap up the show, how about a little shout out for the summit?
Hey guys, so we're doing the summit at the end of October. The speakers are getting prepared. This is going to be an event.
Quick correction, end of August, correct?
You're right, Steve.
All right,
it's at the end of August,
thank you.
29th and 30th. I just want to see if you guys were awake, or at least Steve was awake. And he did catch that, so well done, Steve.
Thank you, sir.
But it's going to be a great event. We have a lot of speakers. We're going to put a link down below. You should check it out. But you don't even have to even fly out. I would love to have you fly out. That's really what I'm going to be missing. But you can watch from your own home. And it's a virtual event. It's not that expensive. And you're going to get a lot of great data. So check it out. And I hope you can make it, attend. And there's a version 2 where you can get the recordings as well. But yeah, because I'm in communication with the speakers right now. And I'm telling you, they are psyched and they're getting ready. And I'm like, you guys are going to be literally blown away. Blown away.
Yeah, so the interaction with all the folks there is something that you'll miss, but I think you're going to have more data and more material from this summit than you might otherwise, because we are going to really focus on putting it tightly together and giving you just what you need. We'll also provide breaks so you can go off and do your thing, keep it very summit-like, but boys are going to be crammed with great information, which you will be able to review after the fact.
I'm very, very selective of who I have speak, and I just want you guys to have the best information. So it's all about getting more knowledge. It's going to help your own survival. So you should attend. Mara from Stowe, Ohio has been waiting patiently. Are you there?
Yes. Hi, doctor. How are you?
Hi. Great.
I want to say thank you for your videos. It really changed my life. I lost a lot of weight, and I've been healthy. I active every day. Really, really thank you. And my question is, doctor, I'm 34 years old, and I got early menopause. And my question is, what we should do, what we should eat, what the hormone we should take for that.
So you're going through early menopause at 34 years old, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
So I have a question. Are you doing healthy keto and intermittent fasting yet?
Yes.
Okay. Are you doing it sort of, or are you doing it strict?
No, actually not strict.
Okay. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do to tell you is to get on the exact version that I recommend in my book. Okay. So and do it very strict, because I will say though, if you do it sort of, you won't see the benefits. And we're talking about the endocrine system with you. So if you're going early menopause, it's just a bit too early. You may find, like, I'll give you an example from my own practice. I've had women get on this program, literally 60s, okay? They hadn't had a period in 12 years and started having their period. Now you might say, well, doesn't sound exciting, but the point is that it can actually help kick in your cycle and allow things to work correctly. So that's one thing. The other thing is Dr. Fung's clinic, I mean, he notices the same thing. So your ability to sink in the normal circadian waves and the amount of, like, you have these different patterns of, at age 52 you're supposed to have menopause, so you're having it much early. There's obviously some blockage. I would go back to the normal thing. But I would also make sure that you add into this mix key nutrients. The ones that I'm talking about are the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A, D, especially E, vitamin E, and K2. And don't be trying to do a low-fat diet. You want to do higher fat, healthy fats, and a lot of greens, all the phytonutrients. And then let's just see what happens. I don't think it's going to be that hard to bring your body in balance, but if I were to give you a remedy right now, and there's quite a few, on top of a sort of keto, it's going to be expensive urine. So go back to the basics, and then let's see what happens. Okay?
Wow, that's something. Well, it always gives me great regret not to get all of the wonderful questions that everybody on social media asks, and I'm sorry we've still got a pile of them, but we do urge you, watch, I'm going to pop this up for you, the drberg.com. Go there and digest all you can. Get ready for the summit, which is going to give you even more information. And thanks so much for putting up with me in Karen's absence. She'll be back and looking beautiful, I'm sure, next week.
Thanks, Karen. And thank you for watching. I really appreciate your attention and also all your comments on YouTube. And I read a lot of them. And where do you think I get great ideas? And also great ideas for future videos and amazing advice. So you guys teach me a tremendous amount. So thank you very much, and we'll see you in the next video.